open. All right, well, started up a couple pieces of equipment here. Been working all day out here on bringing in some sand to, this is my roundup area here, right around, bringing my cattle panels. And I got a few more calves to round up, ear tag and castrate here, and then wean them. And this has always been a low spot. I've worked on it in past years, but I decided all day to bring sand in. And you know, there's a lot of discussion now about farm finances, a lot more concern than there was in the previous couple years, but nothing new to agriculture. We're always kind of on the edge of making profit or having a non-profitable year. And one of the things, the way I think a lot of farm equipment YouTube videos, a lot of farming YouTube videos are equipment oriented. You know, let's just center it around equipment. Very misleading. Equipment's one of the most expensive things, and you have to make very calculated decisions when using them. Every time this tractor starts, it costs me money. So I used 2 tractors today. Originally I was going to start up that skid steer and use it. I used loader tractor and I used my white with the dump trailer. The dump trailer was bought as part of my fertility program because I needed it to transport my manures and compost to the fields. And there, I calculated out whether it was profitable to buy that trailer or not, because it worked out for me. Now the tractors, this is how I think about a project like this. It cost me a minimum of $70 an hour when I had both tractors running to do this. When you're going to operate a medium-sized tractor like that or a skid steer, 35 bucks an hour. And so this all cost me money, a lot of money today. And I made the decision to do this because I think in the long run, it will be a benefit. It's somewhat more of a convenience, and it hasn't been done for years because of the cost of money. Operating that equipment is money. This is what's missing on a lot of farm type videos. And let's face it, all the really big YouTube farm channels, the really big ones, it's just all about equipment. Fancy big John Deere green paint or Case IH, brand new equipment. I mean, the only real big farm YouTube channel that is not equipment centered would be One Lonely Farmer. He's the only one that's really like a true farming channel out of those really big channels. The other ones are all equipment. But that's where the interest is by a lot of non-farm, amateur farmer, part-time farmer types, is equipment. It's misleading. It's very misleading. So something like this is just, again, it cost me a whole bunch of money to do it. When I haul manure, it costs money. it's the only way I survive is I'm always calculating, saying, well, it's cost me money. If you're not thinking it costs you money when you start the tractor, you're missing a major financial component. And then there's a lot of talk about fertilizer this year. You know, I did that video about the agricultural chemistry complex. And what kind of made me think about that, we have a lot of different industrial influencing complexes in our country. And what makes them a complex is they require a subservient patron or customer to keep them going. One depends on the other. And we have, examples, the military industrial complex that I believe Eisenhower talked about. And that's truly what's driving this U.S. involvement over in in Eastern Europe right now. That's the military industrial complex. If we didn't, those companies are too big to fail. And then let's get closer home and talk about agriculture. Who owns these large companies now? Big Pharma is involved in our food industry, which is involved in our chemical and genetics. And they're all one or the other now. Whether you want to call it an agricultural chemistry complex or a pharmaceutical industrial complex, what we're seeing now is they're merging with government. If they're not merging necessarily with politicians, but they are, if you don't want to buy that argument, let's look at our university research. What are they turning out right now that's helping us? Higher yields, all with excessively high inputs. Okay, we have the same example is when you have government agencies that are promoting more production, however, more inputs without a firm economic basis or analysis. You got too many people doing research that's needless. And if the research is funded by a certain entity, we know that there's going to be bribery and a swing of the scientific method. We know now that the scientific method is a joke. It's heavily influenced. We know that scientific journals now are heavily influenced and biased. And that was supposed to be the main tenet of a scientific study design, was you formulate a hypothesis, and in that you also come up with a whole group of biasisms that you want to avoid. If those biasisms are violated, meaning your study is biased, then you have an invalid study. That doesn't seem to matter anymore. When you have the NIH can send hundreds of millions of dollars overseas to super modify the pathogens that can kill people, you got too much research going on. And as far as agriculture goes, I'm looking at my last Hay and Forage Grower magazine, or Progressive Forage Grower also. They're just talking about adding more fertilizer to your cattle pastures, and somebody did another study about, your feed quality, and your feed cost versus average daily gain in your beef cattle. They're just regurgitating a lot of information that has not been extremely beneficial in the long run to agricultural producers. And we're getting ready right now. If you don't believe me, how many people are not going to fertilize their hay fields today? Fertilizer doesn't pay off. I'm going to say it again. Chemical inputs that are producing extremely high yields at the rates they're asking for with the improved genetics are keeping you just barely profitable, if at all. Only profitable. If you don't believe me, then why is there government-backed crop insurance? Because that's your risk protection. If you're a hay farmer like me, you don't have that. Now, the large alfalfa growers I know here in Michigan, they are pushing for federal-backed crop insurance for alfalfa. Okay, because they're, to get that 5 to 6 tons per acre yield a year, some of these large productive farmers are getting, they're still not profitable some years. So we have to have some reservations here about who is serving who. Are we just serving this agricultural, chemical, industrial complex? And, it's all tied in with the equipment. I'm extremely pessimistic now. After what's happened in our country the last couple of years, I am reevaluating everything. We have been lied to by some of our chemical companies, just, ag chemical, just like we're seeing the big drug company that owns the world now lying and covering up data. I mean, we know Monsanto covered up data on the negative effects of Roundup. We know that now. It's been brought out in court documents. But myself as a farmer, I denied that for years. I mean, for decades, I was like, no, we have to feed the world. So I question that now. We do have to feed the world, but how productive do farmers, I mean, I don't buy the fact that we have to be that productive as we are now to feed the world, because our current system in the US has made us grow a lot of products that we don't need. Corn, wheat, and soy. Millions and millions of excess acres of surplus product that are only being incorporated now into the American diet in various forms because we have so much of it. And the government has propped it up. The people working in the USDA and the FDA are former CEOs of big tech ag companies and pharmaceutical companies. And they go back and forth. They go back and forth. The fox is guarding the hen house. I think this year people are going to have a big revelation on this, and you should be scared of what's coming. I mean, we got avian flu coming out. We're going to have massive food shortages coming here now. And you look at when you hear the economists talk and forecast, talking meat going up 60-70% increase in meat cost, and labor shortages, fuel cost, and then we do not know what our weather's going to be like this year either to affect our crop production. But I just thought I'd make a video because there are a lot of misleading farm videos, especially, I mean, leaving out finances, just talking about fancy equipment. And there's a lot more to farming than being an equipment operator. I know we all love our tractors, but when you see these fake farm videos, I'll call them, where it's just about big fancy equipment, that's largely promoted by the big, I mean, who's sponsoring those people? Big pharma, big chemical companies and equipment companies, okay? And as far as the equipment companies, they're getting like the automotive companies. They've shut down and defranchised every one of my old dealerships that had a bunch of old timers there that was all about service. If you're not selling enough equipment, they shut you down. It happened to my John Deere dealer. It also happened to my AGCO dealer that I had. And I hear it's going to be possibly happening to one of my other dealers. And big equipment is not there necessarily to advocate for the farmer. Okay, they're advocating for subsidized individuals that have surplus income to buy equipment. The only way they have that money to buy equipment is there's some sort of subsidy going on, and that relies heavily on this relationship with big pharma, chemical, and genetics companies. The small farmers being left behind. This area used to produce, we used to have, I know a couple farms in my area that used to be bottling dairies, a whole full-fledged dairy on the farm. Those have been long since gone. We also used to produce other crops in this area. We used to cold press mint in this area, believe it or not. I know an old 85-year-old farmer has a mint, his hay rake is a mint rake. We used to grow a lot of other products in this area besides corn, wheat, and soy. So keep the vultures at bay. Interested if there's any good comments out there. Look forward to hearing from you.